Hey guys, so just getting right into it. Obviously, the core of the episode is that it focused on pretty much on Yo's pretty much selection test for in order for him to be accepted as a contender in the Shaman tournament, Shaman fight, whatever you want to call it, and subsequently the pretty much fight between him and Silva and him learning the next form of spirit combat, Oversoul, which to start off. I've for me personally, I've always kind of loved this very specific form of spirit combat, the Oversoul, the most because the form in itself is so minimal while at the same time exuding this sort of natural aura of power, whereas the other forms like beyond this point feel a little clunky, I guess, and just kind of lacked a certain like natural sense of power in order for me to really like take seriously as an actual legitimate technique. And just so everyone knows, I'm not just talking strictly about the original anime. Like the original anime, they went over the moon in trying to show just how powerful spirits can become, and it got way too cartoonish for me. Yeah, it wasn't just the original anime that did this. The manga kind of suffered this similar issue too, and even though I was able to take a lot of the transformations in the manga a lot more seriously than how they were presented in the original anime, I think they still do kind of suffer from a similar issue for me as well, because even though a lot of the final Oversoul forms we're going to see in this adaptation are more minimalist, like the first Oversoul, and definitely evoke a greater sense of power than what we saw in the original anime. The manga version kind of suffers from another weird issue where it pretty much shows like the pretty much manga artist, the mangaka Hiroyuki was still trying his hardest in order to make all the forms unique in some way, and not all, and because of that, it ended up feeling like he was kind of overcomplicating a lot of the designs. So yeah, I guess what I'm basically saying is I pretty much live by, but when it comes to these whole like these whole power systems and these whole techniques and whatnot, this whole evolution of techniques and whatnot, I live by the rule of simplicity. And for me, the simpler the design of like a transformation or a technique or something, the better. And again, the transformations you're going to see further down the line in this adaptation do definitely have a more simpler design, but there is still that aspect of overcomplication that happened in the original anime too. So yeah. And quickly before I forget, as I got older, one weird thing I never really considered about the Oversoul concept of shaman combat is why people like Yo and Ren and all these like these rookies of shaman never really considered this whole concept of placing of imbuing the spirits into an object before. I mean, I guess the logical answer there would just be inexperience or something, but it must have crossed their minds at some point to try this out without needing to be taught it. I mean, I guess Yo I understand because he's a slacker, and eventually Ryu it makes even more sense because he just started his training. But it really seems a little more odd that when you go down the pipeline of the number of shaman wanting to be in this tournament, it becomes a little harder to believe that none of them have at least some semblance of an understanding to basically this concept. I'm probably thinking about it too hard, but yeah, just looking at just looking back, it is a minor detail that does seem iffy to me, but I guess it does also get away with it in the sense where this is Yo's introduction to the idea and the concept of Furioku as well, and I do like how this does show how this episode it does still show a much more perceptive side to Yo as a fighter, and just what it is that does make him worthy. Like I know there are many people who are probably asking the question of what is it about Yo that makes so special? What is it about him that's going to become the Shaman King? He's a slacker, and well, that's kind of the answer. Yo is a very simple person who just wants to live a simple life. He doesn't have any grand ambitions, and honestly, that's kind of completely fine. Sometimes I think in order to be a leader, one do, I think in order to be a leader, sometimes you definitely have to have just. I know it's kind of an old concept that doesn't exist anymore, but you do have to have just pure just pure like goals, pure intentions. I think in order to truly be a leader sometimes. And although I do admit the one problem I did have with the fight with Silva in this adaptation is that it did feel like Bridge had kind of had pretty much rushed through the fight a little bit near the end of the episode rather than letting the moment sit a little longer. Like specifically around the time where pretty much Yo and during Yo and Silva's final clash. It was at that point and beyond where it did feel like Bridge was just kind of like pretty much rushing in or out was basically was just rushing out rather than letting the moment sink. Like I think that is the one issue I have with this is that the fight itself is so rushed that it doesn't really feel like there was ever a moment where it could possibly just kind of like where we could just sit in the moment. It was all just it just kind of it just kind of rushed out the door, I think, in some ways. But again, it was that they did still adapt it in the manga, so I can't really blame them too much. Um, with that said, the other major thing to talk about with this episode is at the very beginning we jump into the idea that Ryu has now awakened his shaman abilities because of the incident with Tokigero. And honestly, this is one of those times where I actually appreciate the minimalized amount of story in regards to Ryu becoming a shaman, because in the anime they kind of did things a little bit backwards, where there was a lot of like build up, where there's a lot of build up even before the Tokigero fight, focused on Ryu like wanting to be a shaman and it kind of came with a whole lot. And while there were some moments that were good in terms of building on Ryu's character, there was also a lot of added material that just kind of came across as comedic filler, I guess you could say. But at least in the grand scheme of things. But here it does cut out. We still do get a little bit of that comedic stuff, but it does also cut out a lot of cut out and trim a lot of the fat that was in the original anime, and I kind of and because of the rearranging of events too, I do just kind of appreciate how Ryu's transition was handled here a little bit better. Um, and it does provide a lot more time now in order for Ryu to bond with Yo and the others. Um, Now on the flip side of that, I wasn't really a big fan of the anime had cut out the whole scene with Ryu and his gang like soaking in the bath in this episode, soaking in the bath because I guess it could again it was a moment I guess could have been considered filler just on storytelling level, but at the same time I think there was just a little bit of seeing that would have been nice just to give him a little bit more of a character moment. Um, Now, what I'm about to say next is kind of off topic from the actual episode itself, but hearing a lot of these lines and bits of dialogue from Amidamaru in this episode really makes me hope even more than before that Sean Schimmel returns to the role when this is dubbed. I mean, obviously just addressing the elephant out of the room ever since the whole ever since the whole fiasco with ever since the whole Vic Mignogna fiasco, he has been in some ways a pariah in the eyes of a lot of fans. But I'm sorry, curiosity compels me. I really want to see what Sean is capable of as an actor with this more kind of in-depth and developed look at Amidamaru's character and just how far he can stretch his range with a lot of these more philosophical moments with the character. Honestly, like I think this could really stretch his acting chops if he were given the opportunity. Again, I know he's still considered a bit of a pariah, but yeah, I want this guy to at least have another chance at this role. I think it would be good. Um, Also, with seeing the shooting star that ignites the start of the shaman fight in this episode, it does kind of make me realize that's sort of the show's own twist on presenting the chosen one trope. Because even though we pretty much know by virtue of Yo being the main character, he will become the shaman king in the end. But the star in itself is basically the conduit that represents the idea of that trope rather than Yo himself. being the chosen one, and it's in its own weird little. It also acts as its own weird little motivator for Yo to keep getting stronger and pushing forward naturally without ever making the progression seem forced or that the first thing that's guiding him is his destiny to become Shaman King. No, it's like he obviously there is still the underlying aspect of the destiny and whatnot, but Yo himself still pretty much needs to improve and get stronger in order for him to even like beat in order to meet that destiny. So it's a nice way of combining the shonen trope with natural progression, I think. Um, and honestly, Anna's conversation with Manta is even kind of an outright rejection of how, yeah, Yo is pretty much far from the chosen one type, but it's his drive to just live a simple life that makes him worthy. And I think that's the other thing too I like about this is how one thing that's present with Yo's character is that he just wants to live a simple life. He doesn't care about fame, adoration. He just wants to keep living the life he is, even if it's a laid back one. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. If I'm on Twitter, be sure to hit the notification bell. Also follow me on AnyList and Crunchyroll. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.